I spent every dollar I had, $1,000, to buy the username from a guy. We negotiated back and forth, and I was like, all you got to do is add an underscore. I'll send you $1,000, take your kids to Disneyland. And he was like, all right, fine. And then I created an Instagram within a second and got at Portland. That was the most transformational moment of my life.
Imagine you get fired from your job out of college, go back to live at your parents' house, and spend every single dollar you have on an Instagram handle. Well, that's exactly what Marcus from Portland Gear did, and he now has a company with the fastest selling backpack in all of America. This is a great episode. We talk about the importance of taking it step by step. Marcus didn't have some grand vision. He didn't spend money he didn't have. He has a philosophy that really allowed him to grow profitably, and there's a ton of lessons in that. We talk about organic storytelling and how valuable that can be and how to think about it, and also reshaping the definition of what a disruptor is and how that can be an innovator versus actually disrupting. This is a really, really good episode from an incredible entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus from Portland Gear. Marcus, welcome to What to Do Next. Really excited to have you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. All the way here from Portland, Oregon in the Northwest.
I want to get into how you built Portland Gear and sort of your personal journey along the way as well, because I think there's some really interesting moments for you there. But before we do that, maybe just a quick, hit us with some highlights, how it started, where it is and how it's going.
Sure. Yeah, I started it in 2014. I got fired from my first screen printing job outside of college. So I was down in Eugene. I went to University of Oregon. I'd worked in these screen printing shops and always knew I loved clothes and product and the things people wear. And I'd worked there for about 3 months, and he came in and he handed me a last check. And he said, hey, we're going to have to let you go. You've been too disruptive. And at the time, I was just like distraught over that. And when I rewound it in my head, I was disruptive because I was trying to make screen printing interesting and different. I was trying to bring in athletes. I was trying to do video. I was trying to make it cool. And to them, that was disrupting because that was, they had never done that before. And so when I got fired from that job, I said, I'm never going to work for anyone else again. I never want to put my ideas in a box. I don't want to be, I don't want someone to walk in at 3:37 on a Thursday and fire me. And so I kind of made a commitment to myself. So driving back to Portland that night, I just woke up the next day and did what I had done, which was screen printing and graphic design, and start flipping jobs and social media. And so I got lucky and got at Portland on Instagram, just at Portland, and started building a community of people, posting pictures of the city, events, things that I was trying to get involved with. And it got to 60, 70, 80,000 followers. And that was kind of when all my worlds collided, where I'd always dreamed of having my own brand. Here in Portland, Oregon, kind of raised in the shadows of Nike World Headquarters, which is the greatest, brand in the world. Wyden and Kennedy, which is the greatest ad agency in the world. Columbia Sportswear. So I'd always been a product kid and kind of around these things. So always had a desire of wanting to start something myself. So kind of having this big community of people that love Portland, my desire to start something, and coming up with this P logo. P logo's got State of Oregon on the inside of it. I just started launching through social media. I built a little Instagram page, Portland Gear, put up a Shopify site. First day it did $5,000 in sales, which was kind of crazy. I didn't have it. I didn't even have that many shirts, but I reprinted them quick. And, then the next day I woke up and said, how do I do that again? So it turned into partnerships and collabs and opening retail stores. And so for the first 8 years, we were a lot of kind of Portland to Portland, I would say, like collabs with trailblazers and organizations in town, and really kind of this pride of the city. So it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I brought in a head of digital marketing, which I didn't know what that meant at the time. He was like, oh, I think we can, put paid ads behind this. And I was like, I'd never done paid ads before. For the first 8 years, I just hustled. It was Instagram, never spent $1 on advertising. And we got to $3-4 million, and it was a really good business and a couple retail stores. And he identified that backpack as something that we could put paid behind. And so we started, putting paid behind it, sell out, put paid behind it, sell out, spend $5,000 a day, spend $10,000 a day, $25,000 a day. And that has really turned into kind of a repositioning of the brand as a weatherproof travel bag and apparel brand that now is far more reaching. We ship to every state every day. We sell hundreds of thousands of these bags, and it's changed the business. We grew 100% in 2024. We grew 211% last year. And we're trying to grow 100% again this year. So we basically have a new business every 90 days. And that's created a lot of really amazing opportunities and some hiccups, when it comes to banking and finance and funding this growth and how to move through this growth and hiring a team. It's been really fun. It's been challenging. and it's awesome.
So you didn't actually use any paid advertising until 3 years ago. Let's come back to that. One thing you said that I thought was really interesting is you started with an audience. You didn't start with a product. When you made that decision, you're driving back in that car, you've been fired, you know, you're probably pretty down. Were you like, I'm going to start a product business, or what made you start the audience and build up the audience?
Yeah, I think it was, I've always been a social person, always had lots of friends and peers and networks. I led the student body in high school and made shirts for the student body. And in college, I was part of a really good fraternity and always had kind of a group of friends and a community of people around me. So when I got fired in Eugene, which is 2 hours south of Portland, and I moved back up to Portland here, like I didn't really have a community. I maybe had a couple old high school friends that were still around, but I knew no one. And I crave that. I'm my best when I'm surrounded by people and bringing people together, and I feel my best. And so basically that was kind of the goal of it, was just to create a community of like-minded people like myself that the shared interest happened to be Portland. And I got lucky with that Instagram page, and there's a whole story around that. But that page changed my life. I spent every dollar I had, $1,000, to buy the username from a guy. We negotiated back and forth. Finally, I was like, just take the money and take your kids to Disneyland. And he was like, all right, fine. I was like, all you have to do is add an underscore. His username was @Portland, and he was like a band guy. And I was like, all you got to do is add an underscore. I'll send you $1,000. Take your kids to Disneyland. So we Zoomed at 6 a.m. because there was no way of doing this in 2014. And I had him add an underscore, and then I created an Instagram within a second and got @Portland. And, that was the most transformational moment of my life. I remember sitting in my parents' house. It was every dollar I had. I had to send him the money before he would transfer it. And it was the biggest risk I took. And that changed the trajectory of my life, because then I had this big Instagram page. It got bigger. A byproduct of that was I was able to start Portland Gear. Now Portland Gear's turned into all this stuff. So I look back at kind of these inflection moments of my entrepreneurial life, and like that didn't feel like risk because I had nothing to lose. I had $1,000 to my name. If I lost it, I'll figure it out, I guess. I didn't have context of what that meant. But yeah, it was always about bringing people together. It was always about building a community. It was always about that. And I think product just becomes a mechanism in which I'm able to do that. Some people maybe do it through music and sound. Some people do it through XYZ. Mine was always through the things that you wear, were kind of emblems and tokens for what you believed in. So the University of Oregon has the O logo. My parents went there. I went there. So the O was always this logo synonymous with like me and my family. And the Nike swoosh was always synonymous with this aspiration that I had of wanting to work at Nike. So these logos to me always stood for something that I believed in. And so when I made the P logo, that was kind of the premise of it, was like, I want something that brings people together. I want something that has a commonality, that when they wear it, they can create connection and it brings them together. So we've just kind of been iterative through that over the last 12 years now.
Hi, I'm David. I'm the president of Highbeam. But before that, I built a brand called David's Tea from 0 to 200 million in sales, and I took it public on the NASDAQ. Highbeam is a banking and cash management platform for consumer brands. It's the bank I wish I had when I was building David's Tea. We'll turn banking from a cost center for you today into a profit center for you tomorrow. We'll make you better cash back on ad spend. We'll maximize your yield on idle working capital through daily automated sweeps. And we have a host of AI-powered tools to save you a boatload of time. Check us out at highbeam.com and let's talk. But when you shell out $1,000 to get @Portland, you're not thinking business. You're thinking, I just want to meet people in Portland, and you wanted this handle. So what was your vision there? I mean, it's $1,000 seems like a lot of money. Like, why didn't you just take the underscore?
I think I had the foresight to know that would be worth it. It was 2014, 13. So that kind of felt to me like having a Portland.com, where it's like, if I have this username, I feel like there's value to the username. And then it happened. Exactly kind of what I had envisioned happened, where I was like, okay, if I get @Portland, start posting pictures of Portland, people are just going to start tagging it. They're just going to start engaging with it without me even having to do anything, because they're just already thinking it, or they're already saying it, or they're already posting it. And that's exactly what happened. The next day there's 50 people that had suddenly tagged Portland in their photos without even realizing that it was me or it was a page. And so for the first probably 5 or 6 years, I really lived behind the curtain of it. I was scared to put a face next to it. I was like, oh, this is kind of the page of the city. This is kind of a bigger thing than me. I don't want to get in the way of that. And I was really worried about that. And then I think I kind of tiptoed into it. I've never posted a selfie on the page, but I was kind of able to make Portland Gear a little bit more about me and the humanness of it, and when I started Portland Gear, all the posts were with Portland page. You know, the Portland page would post about Portland Gear. So I would pull people that were interested in Portland and they'd come over and be interested in Portland Gear. And so I think I added that human element to it over the years. And then that's kind of what made it turn into what it was. And, you know, I would host the events for the Portland page, or I would do photo meetups, or I would be, you know, I got this old Volkswagen bus and wrapped it with Portland Gear, and it became kind of the mobile store and the mobile community builder around town.
So you get this page, it's $1,000. You start building an audience. You have a you know, wow, I can post pictures of the city and people tag it and my audience is growing. At this point, you're still making no money though, right?
Correct.
Right. And then where did it hit you like, oh, I should start selling gear? It sounds like you were almost selling the gear as swag to start.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, that day, yeah, I probably spent 6 to 9 months posting on that page every day, building community with no end goal, with no business plan. It just felt right and I liked doing it. And then I think a byproduct of that was the page felt really authentic. So I did start getting approached by brands that wanted to do partnership deals, and, you know, event X was coming to Portland and they wanted to be seen on my page. And so I was able to make some money from it. But what it really was, yeah, Portland Gear became the way to monetize that page. Selling product, selling something that someone would actually want and could purchase and buy every single day was how I monetized that audience.
Okay, you did a drop. You sell $5,000 of t-shirts and hats to, all right, now I'm going to get a bus. Like, it's almost like you went step by step by step by step, quite deliberately, in a way that it was more linear than you typically see in entrepreneurship. Do you think in terms of what's the next step? Like, you don't seem to have some grand vision that you were working towards the entire time.
I try to be very introspective and say, like, sometimes I wake up, I'm like, how'd I get here? You know, I spent 2 hours last night clodding myself and being like, why am I doing this? What is motivating me? How did I get here? What is it? And so I appreciate you mirroring that. And what it was, you know, when you bootstrap something, you don't have the option of doing very many things. You can only do the next step. So I buy shirts for $300. I end up selling $5,000 worth of them. I call the screen printer and say, hey, I need 300 more shirts to fulfill these orders. We ship out those $5,000 worth of shirts. It made me $2,500. Now I have $2,500. Do I go order more shirts? Do I order a hoodie now? Do I order a hat? Okay, now I've done it for 60 days. Now I could go buy this Volkswagen for $6,000 and be a mobile store. Do I have $6,000? I do have $6,000, so I can spend it. I never added an employee until I could afford it. You know, I didn't sign a lease until I felt confident we could fulfill it. And so I'm still sitting here, you know, even though we're mid 8-figure brand now and selling products over the world, like, I do not spend money that I don't have. You know, I don't spend money that I can't earmark, and Highbeam's been a great partner for me to be able to look into there and see what we have and look at our cash flow and where we're going. I can't overextend. I can a little bit more now that we have, you know, lines of credit and better financing options. For the first 8 to 10 years, I could only spend what I had.
When do you think a founder should raise money versus doing it the bootstrapped way? I mean, it was clearly an advantage for you that you could only think in terms of the next step and that you didn't spend money you didn't have. Did it ever cross your mind, okay, I'm going to go raise a boatload of money on this thing?
No, that's never even been a thought. I didn't even think it was possible. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what investors meant. And candidly, I didn't want one. I mean, I have a story if we've got time here.
We have all the time in the world. Let's hear it.
When I started Portland Gear, that was prime Shark Tank times. So I thought the only way you could start a business was by having investors. I was just like in my head, I'm just like, that's what you have to do, is you have to go get someone's money to fulfill your vision. So I convinced this guy. I was in a little shared, you know, WeWork office before there was WeWork, and paying $500 a month for this desk and just hustling to make $500 a month. And I met this guy and I convinced him to give me 50 grand, 60 grand for 10% of Portland Gear. And I was like, fuck, I'm rich. Like, I don't even know if I have to work again. I'm like, this might just be my retirement. Like, this isn't, like, I did it, you know? And I took this investment from him, and the second I got it, I hated it. I hated the fact that someone else had a piece of this thing that I was building. I hated being indebted to this money. I didn't like the idea of, if I lost it all, I would be very anxious about that. So within 6 months, I bought him out for like $100,000, because I had the foresight again to know that, like, that 10% is going to be worth something in the future. But to me, it wasn't even about what it was worth in the future. It was about not having someone in the seat with me. And even at, now that I know it like 90%, 10%, he wouldn't have been able to do anything anyways. And there's all sorts, it's the mental side of it to me where it's like, that's why I started my own business, was to not be in someone else's pocket, to not have them be able to tell me what to do, what not to do, put my ideas in a box, be able to fire me. So I would rather do a lot of things than have a partner. That's now changed as we've gotten bigger. Like at some point I become a limiting factor to how big we can be. So now maybe I look to raise capital or, see how we can go faster. I mean, we're the fastest selling backpack in America right now. Like, what does that look like to have someone help us and maintain that tail and get there faster, and accelerate that? And if it's, so I think, should a founder raise money? I think there's probably, my assumption would be, what I would advise is a first-time founder should not raise money. I did my own QuickBooks for 8 years. I knew where every penny was. I knew where every dollar was. Every percent of every margin of every single thing we were doing, I was in tune with. I checked the banks every morning before I even checked emails. So I think there becomes kind of this baseline understanding of business that you should learn through not having the ability to just do things. Now I'm much more disciplined. If I wanted to go start an AI company and robotics or something, I would have to raise money. It's just like the cost of certain businesses is exponentially more than my cost of $300 worth of t-shirts. So I think if you're starting a candle company or a mom and pop thing, like, I think you should start small, and I think you should figure out your customers and learn and know your margins and have it be hard for a while. And I think of certain businesses that you should raise money, but if you're undisciplined and you have money, I think we all know those stories that don't end well. Undisciplined founders can go sell some big grand vision and thing, and they raise all this money and they didn't actually know how to deploy it or what to do, or they weren't frugal about it. And I think that can be a detriment as well.
There's a flip side where entrepreneurship can be very lonely. You've been doing this you own 100%. You've been doing it for well over 10 years now. You wrote about this in your book. It reminded me of a saying I always use, which is entrepreneurship is very much a personal journey disguised as a business pursuit. You went from being Marcus Harvey to Marcus from Portland Gear. I mean, I had the same experience. I went from being David Segal to David of David's Tea, and then reinvented myself as the president of Highbeam. But talk a little bit about, the darker side of owning it outright without partners, without, without investors, and sort of that, you're a 12-year overnight success. I mean, bring us in some of the moments and some of the difficulties of going the route that you did go.
Yeah, I never had context of anything other than what I was in. So did this feel hard? Did this feel easy? I don't know. It was just, it was what it was. It was my story. I think now, I joined Vistage 3.5 years ago, which is kind of a CEO group. I'm part of YPO now, which is Young Presidents Organizations. And those have just helped me an immensely amount over the last 3 or 4 years to kind of normalize the things I'm going through, be around people doing $5 to $300 million businesses. You realize everyone's going through the same problems. They're just on different scales. So that's just helped me a ton to be in part of those groups. But for the first 8-9 years, I didn't have those. I was doing my best every day, but I didn't have a deep understanding of growth. Like, again, that's where I didn't know about investors. I didn't know scale. I didn't know what private equity was. Like, I'm still learning what all these things mean, because that was just never a thought or an opportunity. It was just wake up today and how do I sell more t-shirts? And then for 5 years, it was wake up and how do I sell more hats? And now for the last 3 years, it's wake up and how do I sell more backpacks? And 5 years from now, it might be wake up and how do I sell more shoes? I don't know. But like, that's the lens that I think through. It's not, how big can this be? Who do I need? How do I raise the most money? What does a cap table look like? What's the dilution? I don't know any of that. Like, I know enough, but I don't care to know that stuff, because I'd rather go through the hard stuff than have partners and have all that stuff. Doesn't mean that's a never thing. I think I'm growing into the fact that, like, now I know what that looks like. But yeah, it can be lonely. It's as lonely as you make it. If you keep everything to yourself and you don't share anything, which I definitely did for several years, then it can create anxiety and lack of support and no peers to go to, or I don't know. There's a lot of the like founder dilemmas or owner dilemmas. Who do I share what with, and do they know, and do they care, and will that change what they think about me? And I'm sure I suffered through all of that stuff, but I'm now much more confident in our business, confident in the people I have, confident in the team that I have, confident in where we're going, confident in my literacy of the business, that this has never felt like a risk. This has never felt dangerous. This has never felt like, for the first many, many years, I had everything to gain and nothing to lose. My worst case scenario is I moved back to my parents' house where I lived for a year or two after college. I have a great family, so my worst case scenario was that. So I just had everything to gain, nothing to lose. That's kind of shifted now. I've got 3 kids. I've got 40 something employees. I've got leases. Now it's like, now I have everything to lose. And the what's to gain is what I wrestle with every day. And so there's just this kind of, we've definitely like tipped like that, but I still don't go into that out of fear. I go into that out of abundance and what can we do? And, freedom to create is what drives me. And I think we've iteratively fallen forward into where we are right now.
I know you like the book Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight's book on Nike. I also love that book. One of the things that struck me the most from his story is just how long it took Nike. I mean, I think the first 15 years, he still worked at Price Waterhouse. People don't like to make money slowly. It sounds like you don't have a problem with that.
That was never what motivated me. It's a byproduct of success. Do I want to make money? Of course, everyone should want to, for whatever reasons. My motivation for money now is to take care of my family and my wife and, have good food to eat. But that wasn't why I started this. It was to escape working for someone else. It was to not go to a job and be, constrained by what I'm allowed to do and not to do. That was my motivation. 12 years in, overnight success, 12 years in the making. I don't know. I think it's been fun. That's the best part. I've got people, Eli and Wookie and Zach, who've been with me for 10 of those years. It's like, we love our team. We love our culture. We've got a great office here in Northwest Portland. Like, we walk to lunch every day. We genuinely smile. We laugh. We have questions of the day on the board. Like, everyone loves each other here. That's what fills me. Like, that's now what motivates me is how big can we make this just to see for the challenge of doing it, and it's not some huge dollar amount at the end. Would that be nice? Sure. Could I take care of people? I hope so. But for now, it's how do I challenge myself to say, what am I and what are we capable of? And what does that look like?
You got fired for being too disruptive. How do you now think about it when employees are being disruptive?
I love it.
Is there ever a bad disruption?
Depends on how you define disruption. I think, and when I go around and speak to high schools or college and stuff, it's like, how many of you view disruption, have you been told is a bad word? And it's like 80% of hands, because it's like, as a kid, like, you're being disruptive in class. Well, yeah, if you're yelling and screaming and, taking attention away from things and truly disruptive, that's a bad word. But if you reshape the definition of disruptive as innovative, it's like, I want that. Like, I want you to come in. I want a team to come in and say, like, hey, the way we're doing this sucks. Like, we should be doing it like this. I disagree with what we're doing here. I think it'd be really cool if we do this. I'm like the fastest to yes. Like, yes, great, let's do it. Like, yes. I love that. So yeah, I want disruptive thinkers, not disruptive in the fact of like disrupting our culture or who we are or where we're going, but I want disruptive in the form of innovative, outside the box. Hey, I've got an idea. I think we could do this. I want every single person in our organization to think that way. I love that.
I was really taken aback, Marcus, that it was only 3 years ago. So this is like after the iOS update, right? Like 2023 was when you started running paid ads. You had a bus, then you opened stores. Take us back to the moment where you were considering your next move from, okay, this is working, selling out of my VW at various shows and markets, to I'm going to open retail store. I mean, at that moment, Facebook ads was a thing. It was starting to come on, e-commerce was really starting to have its moment. Did you consider going more into the e-commerce realm and starting to see if you could drive ads or like, what was your decision framework at that time and why'd you ultimately choose retail?
I didn't even know they existed. I mean, I'm sure that I knew they existed, but
how could that be? You had this big Instagram account. I mean,
I know. I didn't, because that wasn't what motivated me. The organic storytelling, the authenticity of community building can never be paid. So I was more motivated by who I could get into the store and what kind of events we could create and the culture we'd have, and gear and beer nights where we bring in a speaker and have 30 people, and fucking passport challenge where I set up scavenger hunts around Portland. And to me, it was way more about the IRL of it. I just didn't even know. I never ran a Facebook ad. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I knew how to run Instagram pages and build community and be, a community builder. So, and we also had a product that I didn't understand TAM. I didn't understand all these things. We just had shirts that said Portland and hats that had P's, and it was, how do we sell those? And so I didn't think that Meta or any of those things, it wasn't even Meta back then. It was Facebook ad. It was just never even a thought. until I brought in Liam, and it was, he saw the opportunity with this bag that was, again, kind of a nothing bag that we had, this wireframe weatherproof bag. It was really cool that we had sourced and maybe had 200 of them. And we'd had many backpacks over the years and little accessories that we'd sourced. And so he identified that that was a product that we could put paid behind. And in the innovative mindset, I was like, go ahead. Like, I don't know, go ahead. Puts $1,000 towards it. That sells some backpacks. And then we sell out of backpacks, and then I have no one to order more backpacks. And so now I got to go find a sourcing company, and then the sourcing company's slow. And then I got to find then I don't know if I've never been to a factory. So what's a supply chain? We'd always just screen printed t-shirts in Portland. And now I have to like order product. I have to import stuff. I never imported stuff. And so we're sitting here now with 26 people in the office and a team of 12 on the marketing team and 4 on the product team and 2 on the supply chain team. And it's like, that's all happened in the last 36 months.
Was it a big change for you going from, you weren't manufacturing in Portland per se, you were finishing the goods in Portland. But when you thought about building that supply chain, given that you're all about Portland, did you guys consider manufacturing locally?
Yeah, and I think that's just not plausible for the price point that we wanted to hit at. I think that was definitely fear in the early days, was that, people would expect this stuff to be made here. And that's just not the case. If they wanted us to make that backpack here, it'd be a $300 backpack. They're not going to pay for it then. So what value am I trying to sell to them? Is the value that it's made in Portland, which ultimately isn't a benefited value to the customer, or is it that it's weatherproof wireframe every day at $109? You can use it for multi-purpose. It fits under a plane seat. That's what solves a problem for them. Making it in Portland solves a problem for us, which isn't even really a problem to the customer, if that makes sense.
That's super interesting. Being authentic and is super important, but only to the extent that that's the value prop for the customer, not just for you.
Yeah, we do as much as we can here. Our inspiration from Apple, we have designed in Portland, proved everywhere. So our warehouse here, our 3PLs here, our office is here, our stores here, our team is here. So we do as much as we can here, but I can't create a assembly line to build 100,000 bags in Portland, that's just in anywhere in America right now, so it's like, as much as I would absolutely love to, and that would be freaking incredible, that's just not the realities of kind of the global product economic system we have.
You said you were selling Portland to Portland, right? And the backpack really changed that for you, and you retooled the entire company around it. From a brand standpoint, how has it changed as you started to go beyond to customers who probably never even set foot in Oregon?
Yeah, a lot. That's been the song and dance for the last 3 years is, the 130,000 followers we have on our Portland Gear Instagram page have come to us over the last 10 years through the Portland page, Portland Gear, local, Marcus in the news, opening stores, all this stuff. But yet our new audience is completely separate from that. It's Nancy in Montana who's buying a backpack to travel and 2 for her kids. And, she doesn't care about our Portland Trailblazers collab. But we can't say no to these people. We can only say yes to this people. So this is the dance we've been in for the last couple of years. And something's working about it because we're growing. But yeah, we're always kind of, trying to rebalance this and say, okay, should we just go like this? Is it a slow like this over the next 5 years? If we say no to this takes away all of our authenticity to the region and how we got here. And we just become this bag brand. If we just become a bag brand, we could maybe get bigger, but then we're saying no to this. If we over-index on Portland, then we're under-indexed on problem solving for customers. So yeah, we've really spent a lot of time on our brand narrative and what we believe and what we care about, and trying to find that through line from OG Portland Gear days to what's working now. And I think that's been the most fun part of this, is that we're really working right now without having all that be clear. And so we're almost getting to look backwards and saying why are we working? As opposed to be from this moment forward, we're going to be this. We're okay, we have the best selling backpack in America right now. Why? Why do people see that ad and they love it? Why do they like that it's called Portland Gear, but they live in Florida? What is it about our product and our brand that they can see themselves in and buying? And so that's been a really fun, brand exercise, and reshaping of it is to kind of go backwards as opposed to forwards and find that through line through both of those versions of the business.
I find you're really, really good at taking it step by step by step without feeling this need to absolutely floor the gas pedal. And it sounds like it gives you, the patience actually gives you a better perspective for it to unfold almost organically to the point where the decision becomes obvious.
Yeah. I mean, we're opening a store in Bend, Oregon, which is this beautiful Central Oregon city that's got rivers and mountains and trees. It's just idyllic America. And we haven't had a store that far out of town. They reached out to us. They said, hey, we've got an opening. It's the best corner in the area. There are hundreds of thousands of people. I'm like, great. That sounds great. And so we're open next week. So half of it is just as the world presents itself to us. Half of it is us going and finding it. We had a big nationwide retailer that reached out to us, and we've been doing, a big potential rollout with them. And that came to us. That wasn't me sitting here saying, I want to go find them. And I find when it comes to us, it's more amicable to work with the other partner. It's not me having to sell. It's not me having to convince. It's like if Bend calls us and they want us, like they're going to figure out a way to get us there. And that makes it better for us. If retailer X calls us, that means they want us, then it's going to be easier to get that to the finish line. So yeah, half of it is letting the world happen to us. Half of it is, me spending the time kind of saying, where do we want to go? And I think when those mix is when we get these really authentic kind of things that feel good. They don't feel forced.
What's your framework for thinking about, when do you say no versus, I mean, you're by nature a yes, you're like hell yes guy, where it's like you want to test, you want to innovate. But when do you say no?
If it doesn't feel right, and feeling is a weird word, there's not a definition. I don't run it through a 7-step checklist on if it should or shouldn't happen. I spend a lot of time on Instagram still. I still am very in tune with our brand and who's our customer and what I want us to look like and feel like. So, yeah, we get opportunities and stuff all the time that maybe feel right, maybe don't. But to me, it's kind of a sniff test.
You work with one of your best friends, I believe, from college, right? What's it like mixing friendship with business?
Yeah. Well, one, it's all I've ever known because he's been with me from the beginning. So it's more about figuring it out along the way than it is knowing how to handle it, I suppose. It's 95% a blessing and 5% got to figure it out. When it involves salary or comp or money, those conversations always suck. And you have to treat them like an employee at certain times and fit them into a system. But the 95% of the time, it's incredible to know that there's someone here I trust and someone that is a keeper of the culture, that's known every story along the way, that's been in every photo and street pop up. And he was the first model because he was free. And, like that's invaluable. And so I wouldn't want it any other way. It can create, and I've got Wookie and Zach, people have been with me for a long time. There's moments throughout the year that create, tension. That's probably good for both sides. And then there's most of the year that it just feels great to know that you've got an ally and a partner and someone that has your back through it all and has already been through it all with you and is a real sounding board to you and will be honest with you. And when you bring in new people, maybe they're less honest with you because I'm the owner. But when you have people that have been with me, that trust me, that know how I work, I think that helps shape the culture too. So I wouldn't have it any other way,
You don't strike me as a guy with many regrets, but if you look back on this 12-year journey, are there moments where you're like, wow, I wish I had done that differently?
No. I mean, I suppose you could look back and say, wow, I wish I would have done ads in 2013, but we weren't ready. I wasn't ready. The brand wasn't ready. My knowledge of business wasn't ready. My aptitude to want to grow like this wasn't ready. So yeah, I'm never a rear view mirror person. Every one of those hiccups was a learning lesson. Everything we went through was something we needed to go through. Everything helped shape us to where we are now. No regrets, no wish I would have. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, your mistake was a mistake of omission, but what were some of the mistakes, like the real mistakes? Like, do you ever have any where you're like, oh crap, we bought way too much of that?
Yeah, I'm sure, but those were all iterative things that I needed to learn and go through. Like nothing has broken us. It's not like I ordered $20 million of pink bags and I got the color wrong. It's like, I won't let us do that. It's like like you said, everything is let's do a little bit of it. Let's see if it works. Now let's do more of that. Now let's do more of that. So we haven't had any of those, Yeah, we had a couple thousand bags that kind of smelled like mold when they came. They'd been on it, but it's like, we had to learn that, we had to learn silicon packets and how to not have that happen next time. And we learned that that's a bad factory. And so that's what forced us to get a new factory, which ended up being a great factory. So it's like, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have moved and we wouldn't be in this position we're in. So yeah, a million little little scars like that, but nothing that turned into like a big gushing wound that, you know, changed us.
Any seasoned entrepreneur has a million stories like that. But when you're going through those for the first time, they can feel like the end of the world. What do you tell yourself? Like, you know, you got, I mean, I remember my first shipment, I had 250,000 Ziploc bags for tea where the paint, you could literally take your fingernail and carve into the bag. And I thought our world was ending.
Mhm.
You know, what did you do? You get these 2,000, 3,000 moldy bags. I mean, presumably that was a big number for you at that moment.
Yeah.
Do you sell them? Do you not sell them? What do you do?
You be honest with people and you sell them at a warehouse sale and you say, these might have a scent, but smell it first. And if it passes your smell test, it's $50, you know, like I'll never try to, like, I won't try to like sneak around behind something and pull a quick one on people. Be honest with them. If something breaks, we fix it. If it's a real mess up, I'll eat the cost. Last week, our getaway bags, our brand new, beautiful hybrid backpack weekender, several thousand units, hero product launch it very well, successful. 2 weeks later, all the chest straps are pulling off. You know, they got the chest thing wrong. I'm like, right, is what it is. Pull them all off the backpacks, send people temporary ones, and if a year, and then now from now on, all the POs will be fixed. The factory, you know, acknowledged the mistake. I'm not going to burn the bags. It's still a great bag. Change the image on the website so it doesn't have a strap on it. So we're not lying. You know, it's like the backpack doesn't have a strap, and it'll be fixed with the next order. And if customer gets it and they say there's not a chest strap, the factory is making us some temporary ones that look really nice that just clip on to any backpack. We'll send them that for free, and we'll send them a $50 gift card. And they'll say, great, thanks. And so, yeah, that could have turned into an implosion and costed me tens of thousands of dollars. And I'd be like, whoa, our world's over. Or I'd just say, cool, here's what we got to do. Mistakes happen as long as it's 3% of the time, you know, not 50% of the time, then it is what it is. And now we won't have that mistake happen again. We will wear test stuff better. The factory's going to be more astute with that stuff. Like we won't make that mistake again. So I'd rather make it on 3,000 units than on 300,000 units. So you make the mistake. You did it on 250,000 bags. Well, when you started ordering 1 million bags, I bet the paint didn't chip.
It's actually another really good reason to take it step by step by step is that, you know, yes, you make the mistakes, but you don't scale so fast where the mistakes hit you at scale.
And they inevitably will.
And they inevitably will. That's right. And they inevitably will anyway. It's true.
But as long as you're growing, like I would call this at scale for us right now. This isn't at scale for us for Nike, but for us right now, this was at scale. This was a full production run of a new product. So that was as big of a scale as we could do. I hope in 10 years that looks like a small scale, but for right now, yeah, that was a big scale for us. And you just iteratively go forward, you know? And when you have good factory partners, like let's say the backpacks came and all the PU leather chipped off, you know, the factory would be like, hey, that's on us. We'll replace them. Cool. Yeah, we're going to lose 4 months, but I'd rather that than have a bunch of bags chipped. So it's like, depends on how big the problem is. If you couldn't sell those bags because if the lead paint chips into the matcha, you're going to kill people, you probably wouldn't do it. You'll take the loss or the bag company will take the loss. If you can, you know, we've had to rework some stuff. If you can re-pour all of those into 250,000 new bags and not have to actually make new matcha, but you can just get new bags. Maybe the supplier would say, hey, we'd rather give you 20 grand to rebag these than 200 grand to replace them. So there's always a path forward. You know, there's always a path forward when you have good partners and you value people and you take care of them, and there's always a path.
You don't have investors, which gives you tremendous flexibility on the finance side in terms of no one's sitting there telling you need to improve gross margin or inventory turns or anything like that. I mean, you talk about, you went into this, it wasn't about making money. It was about never being fired Tuesday at 3:00 and having the creative freedom that you want. Now that you're obviously a bit more of a mature company with employees and that's a real going concern and growing, how do you think about the metrics?
Yeah, I mean, I live in them. Again, those first 8 years, I ran the QuickBooks. So there was, I would do the QuickBooks before I opened emails every morning. It was a discipline that I had, that I knew I needed to know my numbers because I had no other option. I couldn't take my eye off it because I'm the only one. It's my money. It's all we have. And I'm the one that has to make the decision. So I still am that. I'm still in the numbers every single day. I know where we're going. I know what we have. I know what we need. I'm always trying to stay ahead of banking relationships and lending relationships so that we're not getting caught, you know, short-sighted. I'm working those connections. I'm always trying to find ways to improve. One of those being HighBeam. You know, we've had very traditional banks for a long time, and HighBeam coming in and being an innovative disruptor in the space and being easier to use and helping with tools to save time and efficiencies is like stuff like that's a no-brainer. So anything that can help me understand my business better is really important. But yeah, you know, I don't sit here with a board meeting every quarter saying like we only grew 13%. Why didn't we grow 14? I don't like that. That makes me anxious. I don't like that. Case in point, last year we grew 200 something percent because I let the business do what it needed to do. And it was trending in a certain direction. So we accelerated the trend and we stayed on it. I didn't pull it back. I didn't try to go 5 times as much. Like we let the business do what it could do as long as it's hitting certain metrics and things and gross margins staying. And yeah, ad spend's going up, but are we counteracting that with other things and LTVs and payrolls and all these things? Are we getting more efficient with the same amount of people? So I live in those numbers. You know, I've got a great exec team here that's helping and, you know, very aware of all those. But I'd say that's probably the loneliest part, is making kind of those big decisions by myself.
Probably don't put a lot of emphasis on forecasting. I mean,
Product forecasting, not cash flow forecasting. You know, like
right.
we're ordered 6 months in advance. We're now ordered through October as of yesterday, product wise. So I've got a ton of open POs and we know where we're going. We know the product roadmap, but I am not utilizing the full tools of HighBeam or any of these financial things to really be shaping that cash flow forecasting. Candidly, because we haven't had to. We've been able to get this far with just, you know, cash in the bank, yesterday's sales, where we're going, available lines of credit cards, just balancing that. Like we've been able to do this. But yeah, our POs are bigger now. You know, it's $300,000 POs, it's $1 million POs, it's bigger dollar amounts than we've done historically as we're trying to scale and ordering 6 months out. Like you're trying to predict if we're actually going to grow that much, but you can only grow that much if you have the inventory. So we're making the bet on the inventory before we make the bet on the sales. So that can be a little scary, but it's never been overextending. Again, it's felt okay. The risk felt okay. It never felt risky.
Marcus, I mean, you are the definition of a lifestyle operator, and it is rare. You don't see it often. I mean, a couple of, you know, this idea of I don't spend money I don't have is just so timeless. You know, at HighBeam, I see probably 1,000 brands a year. And there are so few who truly are willing to do it step by step and build it up to a place where you've gotten it. So congratulations. We end every one with a lightning round here. What's the best money you ever spent under $500?
It was probably more, but my dog.
Keep it good companionship.
Yeah, she just came into our life at the right time. It helped me create balance. You know, I was living above my office. I was getting very anxious with no separation of life and business and always on socials and growing. And, you know, when we got the dog, it was because we had moved. That created some separation. The dog gave me some time to not work on work. And, you know, it was our first child. I now have 3 kids, but that was the first thing to take care of and that like needed me. That wasn't a business or my spouse. So yeah, she was maybe $1,000, you know, but that I would say that the dog was the best non-business low dollar purchase.
What's one thing you took away from Phil Knight's story, Shoe Dog, that actually changed how you operate?
A million things. He's been my North Star my entire life. I hope I have the opportunity to meet him again before he you know, passes away, which hopefully is still a long time, but he's getting older. You know, he's in his late 80s now and still cares immensely about Nike, still runs that thing even from afar. And so just to be in his head for a few minutes would be incredible. You know, I tried to take a lot from his story. You know, he moved back into his parents' house. His first sample shoes showed up on, you know, on the doorstep of his parents' house. He lived in the garage in not a creepy way, but after reading that book several times, like I recharted where all of those locations were in Portland. And I would drive around and sit in front of him. I found his childhood house. That's where Phil walked in. Like that's where the first ever pair of Nike shoes came. The greatest brand in the world, the most aspirational, coolest company in the world started 6 minutes away from here on a cul-de-sac in Southwest Portland. And then I would go to, you know, I found the place that was their first office that was a mile away from his parents' house. And it's now like a vegan strip club or something. But I just sat there for a minute, you know, and I charted through his stories and I was like, oh, I think it's this. And I remember him talking about a window and I was just like, man, if the greatest company in the world can start like this, then maybe I can have a little something of that. You know, I went to their second office and You know, obviously now they're world headquarters. I was out there last week for lunch with the peer. It's like, I want to feel, I do feel what he felt, you know, like the air is the same here, the dirt's the same here, the region's the same here. And he was able to take all of that and turn it into the greatest thing in the world. Like, I don't think it gets much more inspiring than that.
What's a big decision you're wrestling with right now?
How fast to go? You know, are we a trend? Are we a fad? I don't think we are, but I think we have parts of those that are true. Like, we are trending, but I don't want to be a trend. We are not a fad, because a approachably priced multi-use bag in your life is not going anywhere. So yeah, how fast to go, how slow to go, you know, do we still go like this, or do I start going more like this? How to make this thing last, how to not be a overnight success that then goes back to a $5 million business, you know? I don't think that's the case, but I'm very methodical. So yeah, it's how real is this right now? How big can this be? And what are the right steps to getting there without overextending, which we've never done.
Last question. Finish the sentence. Every founder who wants to build a memorable brand should
know their numbers. You have to know your numbers. You got it. You have to know your numbers. You can't have a finance partner that tells you your numbers. You have to know your numbers. Not forever. I mean, forever, yes, but like, you have to intimately know your numbers for as long as you can. And people don't want to do that. People don't like numbers. They don't like banking. They don't like money. They just want to have vision and go and do the cool parts and the cool things. But I would guess that's why you didn't need to take this job. But I would guess that you came around to this because you see the importance of knowing your numbers and the importance of banking and the importance that, you know, you don't have a business without money. And if you don't have a real understanding of it and where it's coming from and where it's going, then you're out of business. And so I think there is something really broken about the kind of old school, low mentality, old school banking that can't go at the speed in which the world is going right now, that we need thoughtful, innovative partners that can be at the same speed in which us as brands and innovative people want to go at.
It's so interesting you say. I mean, consumer brands, it's all about cash flow, right? I mean, you can be profitable and broke, and if you don't know your profitability numbers, you're in big trouble. But even the cash flow itself, I mean, you got to understand where your inventory is at, and are you able to turn it fast enough? But what's interesting is every successful founder we've had on What to Do Next speaks about the importance of knowing their numbers intimately themselves. And in fact, one of our founders, Steve at Cuts Clothing, even talked about a period in his career where the business got in big trouble because he didn't, and he counted on his CFO to know them.
Yeah. You know, I don't have a CFO, so I can't count on someone else. You know, it's like the train stops with me. I got to know the numbers. And yeah, we have a controller and, you know, financial help and stuff, but that's really important to me, is to know I could tell you to the dollar without even looking today. I could tell you to the dollar what our inventory is, what our gross margin is, where we're at year to date compared to last year, where we're at to target, when inventory is coming, how much cash I need and when, just because I think it's that important to know those things.
Marcus, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I got a lot out of this, and I'm sure the audience did too. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it as well.